I often get questions like, how do you notice things about people? Like, "Oh, how do I know if this person is that or that person is this? If they're honest, if they're dishonest, whatever, whatever." The best way to gauge someone without actually having a skill set of gauging someone, um, is to listen to how they talk. Like, as basic as that, I feel like a lot of people, let that go because they don't want to be mean or rude or something like that. They don't want to be judgmental, which is fine. But the best of people, right, will never have um horrendous vernacular. That's a guarantee. And the worst people, right, the worst people will have very, very toxic, very toxic vernacular. This isn't always true, but I'll talk about that too. So why language matters? When you talk to a person or when you see someone like talking about something and all they do is like they swear, they cuss all the time. I cuss too, I know sometimes, but I mean like all the time. They talk out of their age, meaning that maybe they're like 35 and then they talk like they're 10 years old. They use different kinds of like slang. They always mispronounce words. They're always like misconstruing, right, different meanings and stuff like that. Um, in my opinion, okay, and this is what I do. I try to completely remove myself from people who have those traits, and I'll tell you why. Okay, um, I've never met a single mentally balanced and mentally healthy person in my life who had a terrible way of speaking. So I've met more people who are very well spoken and sort of like calm and that were really good people. And I've met a lot of people who had simple vocabulary, let's call it that were very nice people. But when someone speaks ugly, right? If you wanted like an indication, an indicator about what their inner world and what their thought process looks like imagine the stuff that they're not saying, that's the first giveaway. And I just want you to understand that when you listen to a person, they're telling you something by the way they talk. Don't even listen to what they're saying, it doesn't matter. It's the way they communicate. So some people communicate in a diplomatic sense, some people talk in an authoritative sense, other people talk like they have evil thoughts, right? So most of their thoughts are riddled with jealousy and hatred and anger, so on and so forth. You can't keep forgiving these people, right? You can't just like keep looking past that. Get it? You have to remove yourself from that person because the amount of just toxic waste they're exposing you to, man, that's hard to wash off, right? And I need you guys to really think about this, and I need you to learn that hygiene isn't just about you, it's about all of the things and all of the people you choose to keep around you. That's real hygiene. So when we're talking about people who talk bad or who talk weird, and like I call it speaking in tongues, even though like the meaning isn't necessarily like it's not what it actually means, but that's what I call it for myself. Like whenever I meet someone, I'm like, oh, okay, like this person is speaking in tongues, meaning like their words are all screwed up, their grammar is all screwed up, they can't type, they can't write. So I'm not talking about people who are dyslexic. That's a different thing, right? Because let's say if someone is dyslexic, they might have issues like reading and typing, but what the way they communicate is still going to be, relatively positive. I've noticed this in a lot of people. Like they'll actually engage in conversation and argument and debate and whatever, with people who just have terrible energy and just like the words they use, right? Again, like if someone like swears too much, like excessively, right? If someone has some weird tick or has some like strange, all of that stuff is there for a reason, right? They're they're being the honest ones, and they're basically like showing you, well, this is what I am. This is what my inner monologue looks like. And to me, like I've had to teach myself right through, let's say, physiognomy and other things, right, like psychology and behavioral psychology, to recognize and understand who is best to avoid, and not avoid in the sense of like be fearful of them or terrified of them. There's nothing to be terrified of, but to avoid in the sense of like, it's probably not worth sort of like allowing this person to, you know, you know, chew up your aura and your energy. And a lot of people will do that, right? Like they won't respect the hygiene in the air, like the energetic hygiene of the situation or the conversation. And you just want to remove yourself from those people, right? Um, if you look at most social media, and if you look at how most people communicate to one another or with one another, it's almost always full of insults. Like, okay, it doesn't matter if they're on the internet, if they're trolling, da, 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 it doesn't matter. You need to have a higher standard for people in general. Like, you need to demand a much higher standard from people if you're going to clean up your aura and your energy and the things that affect you. And if you're going to make the world quiet, as we talk about, right? But what I call the art of quiet living. If you want to make those things quiet, you actually have to make them quiet. So it's not like I'm in the same room and they're talking and I'm like la la la, I don't hear you. I'm not listening. No, it's like quite literally removing yourself completely from that situation and making sure you never, sort of like interact, or as much as you're able to, right? To make sure you never interact with those with these sorts of players, right? Because what they do is like they slowly contaminate your field, and those words, they sort of like imprint themselves into your thoughts, and every time you think of that person, then like those words come back, right? And this could be small things as well, like it could be like an annoying or irritating noise someone or sound someone likes to make, but it's just so like irritating, right? And like there's some sort of like maliciousness behind it, right? If it's not some sort of nervous tick, why else would they be making it? Or if it's like some word someone uses or some expression someone uses that's so overwhelmingly negative, like you if you're not even able to interpret it in any sort of positive way, you need to clean those people up. Like I cannot believe, right? So some of the people that I talk to, very nice people, right? And then I see them sort of like commenting on like people's accounts and so on and so forth. And man, like the whole comment section is just people brutalizing one another. I'm like, my guy, like, why are you even engaging in this thing? Like, you realize that you can literally just use the function of the website and just like block this stuff. You actually don't have to watch everything that's on TV, right? They can just like switch the channel. But I feel like people are so emotionally invested in whatever drama is going on that they like it's almost like they're entranced and they're like under hypnosis and they still have to watch. They have to see the thing. Like it's an ugly thing, but they have to see it unfold regardless, even if they know 110% that it's an ugly thing they're looking at. So I'm like, why are you looking at this ugly thing? Why must this be a necessity to you, right? So when you feel like sort of like in awe or even enamored by hearing and seeing things like that, or hearing people talk like very rudely to one another and just I completely trash them, right? And they go on these like podcasts or whatever sometimes, or they'll go on these like they'll do like whole like 40-minute review videos. Some people will on YouTube, for example, if they're reviewing like some person's work or a movie or whatever. And they'll just like trash them for like 40 minutes. I'm like, why do I have to watch this? Why do you have to watch this? So you don't. And like one of the first lessons, I guess, I usually teach is you can make those things quiet. Just remove them from your life. And I promise you, like the quality of your life, the quality of your every day is going to become so much better. So it's not that, oh, like I can read this, but it doesn't affect me. It's not good enough. Get it? Like I get that a lot. Like, oh, like, I watch this, but it's like when people watch like war footage, right? Because well, we're human. We all have some sort of weird fascination with violence and death. And when people watch like footage from the war and they're like, "Ah, I've seen thousands of these. It doesn't even affect me anymore." Well, congratulations. That's terrible if it doesn't affect you anymore, right? It's done its job. So when you sort of like desensitize yourself to hearing these terrible things, and then these terrible things to you don't seem like terrible things anymore, you have successfully reprogrammed your mind. When you can watch like a whole like I don't know like those terrible fucking videos that they put on. Here's a 15-minute beheading compilation, and if you can watch that like completely with some even if it's just out of like fascination or curiosity or some sort of wicked research you're doing, right? I need you to like sort of like sit down with yourself and be like, what am I actually watching, and why am I desensitized to whatever I'm seeing? Or if you hear someone talk like, okay, I just like use the swear word, right, like 2 minutes ago. Now imagine if I were doing that like every other sentence, right? Every other sentence I'm using a swear word, right? um like one is okay because it carries some sort of function to dramatize, to sort of like showcase to you, okay, like this is a sort of like a dramatic language. This means that I want you to focus extra hard on what I'm about to say after, the cuss word. But if I use it like constantly all the time, it completely loses its function, and then it just becomes like this ritualistic word, that just showcases to you just how vain and shallow and just ugly my thoughts are, right? So everything starts with allowing people who have ugly thoughts into your life and into your vicinity and onto your Twitter wall or X wall or whatever you want to call it. You can't keep allowing people to sort of like muddy up your energy, right? It's not like you don't have a person in your room in real life who, like, I don't know, yells out a swear word every 2 minutes sitting in your room. If you had, you would go nuts, right? You would go insane. You'd be like, oh my God, like, I have to get out of here. Like, imagine if you had a neighbor that like came out every like 5 or 10 minutes like on the balcony or something, and they just like yelled out cuss words, just like into the wind, just like that. You'd go crazy. You'd be like, wow, this person is insane. What are they doing? Yet here on the internet, right, because you're sort of like more removed in a sense, like your individual self, I guess, is more removed. We find it okay to like read stuff from people or listen to people who are have a lot of demons in their heads, you know, who have a lot of darkness in their thoughts, and they have so much of it, in fact, that now it's like sort of like seeping out, right? It's seeping out and they can't even contain it within themselves. And honestly, that's what I want to share, the importance of that, And the reason I speak slowly down gradually and I haven't like sort of like gone into like this weird sort of rant or like a storytelling session like I usually do is because I want you guys to like really slow down your thoughts with me here and really think about the effects of this, right? Like really consider that. Like who do you have in your life that you don't have a problem partying with in a sense that you maybe like just listen to or whatever just because you feel like you can tolerate them, like who do you have in your life that you're tolerating right now that you cannot be tolerating, because tolerating takes willpower, right? And why would you waste all this beautiful willpower that you have to a limited quantity actually per day just to tolerate someone's behavior that you don't like, right? Words have power and words have meaning. So do names, right? We talk about the true name of things all the time. But it's important to understand the implications of that. And it's also important to understand, in a practical sense, well, how can I use this knowledge or how can I use this sentiment, right, that has now been made known to me to actually upgrade my life and improve my life? So I knew that some of my old friends that I were friends with, I knew that we would stop being friends after I noticed that my vocabulary and my speech and my cadence and my language upgraded and theirs did not. And if I'm sure you guys have like friends or acquaintances or relatives from the past that you feel the same way about. It's almost like you upgraded and they stayed the same or they regressed. And what's the first thing that you notice this on? It's like the way they speak, it's the way the way they talk about things, right? And it's not just about like, okay, someone can be shallow, but a positive presence. But sometimes people will just project their own sort of like mud and muck onto you and onto the world. And you really need to think about like why you're tolerating it. And like even now, like as we're talking about this, like think about what are some elements, what are some pages that I'm following, what are some this and that that I don't need, that I'm just following them out of this stupid matrix subconscious programming or some sort of like strange dark curiosity, right? And I don't have to actually deal with it. I don't have to listen to it. I'm beyond the language that's being used, right? And just, delete them off. I really urge you to do that. It's like it'll feel like you're not going to feel anything in the moment, but give it a few weeks and give it a few days even, right? Then it'll feel like you have just removed a leech off of your body because you're not regularly exposed to it anymore, and you feel like this sort of like emptiness now, like this feeling of lightness of like, whoa man, like damn, okay, it feels really nice to not be exposed to like nasty dirty language or someone who has a way of expressing themselves in a nasty, dirty way. How great is it to be exposed to people who choose to express themselves well and actually watch what they say and watch their language and really, like um, talk in straightforward ways, right? They try to be earnest with one another. They try to be honest with, like, you need to have higher standards for everything because the world will give you what you tolerate. The world will give you what you sort of like, what you conform to, what you subscribe to, like what you're fine with. So demand is a very interesting thing in relation to how it relates to, well, the universe at large, because if I if my standards are like I demand to have virtuous friends, it's not like you can ever settle with something that's less than that, and you shouldn't. And over time, you teach the universe this lesson, and it knows that because it knows you. So like you always assume that the universe knows the most updated, legendary, like current, up to date version of you. So your mom doesn't know, your dad doesn't know, your brother doesn't know, but things have happened in the quantum processes of your highly intellectual mind. You've changed things about you. So you always assume that the keeper of this secret of change is the universe at large, is the collective mind. And now the collective mind knows, well, Jack of Faces, look at him. He does not tolerate friends who talk in dirty, nasty ways. So it's almost like it's after some point, like it stops offering you those friends because like it becomes senseless. The informational exchange becomes senseless, meaning that if the universe already knows that if you give me a friend or a potential friend that's a dirty, nasty speaker, I will immediately reject them. So it doesn't even happen anymore. Like the choice doesn't even occur anymore. So it's not like you're getting what you really want. You're never getting your ideal. You're getting the base minimum of what you will tolerate and what you've subscribed to tolerating, right? This is a big thing. I wanted to start this with language because it's a good example, but I'm sort of like implying a larger concept here, and I'm trying to teach you a larger concept. Um, you don't get your highest ideal, at least not most of the times. What you get is the bare minimum of what you will tolerate. So if because everything you do, like I always say, everything you do is of ultimate importance. And this sort of implies that like you talk with the universe at large with whatever you do in a symbolic sense. So tolerating something that's beneath you or that you don't like is also communicating to the universe that actually like I'm fine with this. Like I'm okay with this sort of behavior. I'm okay with whatever, whatever. It's a subtle thing, but it's a very important thing. Like if you surround yourself with idiots, you're quite literally sending out a message into your subconscious, and then through your subconscious you're reprogramming it, right? You're sending out a message that I'm fine with having idiots around me. And then suddenly all you have is idiots around you. And then the sort of like the hellish cycle begins, right? The your biases feed the things you attract. Your low standards when it comes to people and things, they 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 attract these bad players, people who need some soap to wash out their mouth with, right? And then you look around and you become toxic because all you talk about is like, man, like I'm surrounded by idiots. And if this world is a mirror and I'm surrounded by idiots, then I'm also probably an idiot. Get it? Like the company you keep, or not even you, the company a person keeps is so incredibly important. Like to sort of like get a good idea of like who they are and to sort of like judge the quality of their persona. It's such an important thing. Um, the very first thing, like show me your friends, show me who your friends are, and I already know who you are. Right? That is unequivocally 100% true. All the time. Doesn't matter what the appearances are, doesn't matter what the visuals are like. You know what I'm saying? Um when you look at someone and they seem to be like an okay person, right? And then like they're friends with someone else who is a despicable character. Like their aura is just like obnoxious, and you're like, how can this person be friends with that person? Like that thought almost always crosses your mind, doesn't it? And then you sort of like Give yourself some sort of excuse that you're excusing your friend who you like, who you think is an okay person. You say maybe like they're so non-judgmental, or maybe they have some history together, or blah blah blah. That they can actually be friends with this other person who's obnoxious. But the truth of the matter is, your friend is not a good person. Like your friend that you feel like is okay, and he's sort of like very neutral and very agreeable and diplomatic. He also harbors those same thoughts. If he did not harbor those thoughts, there's no way they could sit in a room with the third guy, right? Um, for a single day, for a single hour, even. There's no way it would be unacceptable to them, right? So the people with the highest quality of life are the people who are very, very picky, pick and choose, very, very picky about who they associate with, right? And it's crazy to know that a lot of people are really picky about like the stuff they eat, the stuff they consume, the stuff they wear, the stuff they, I don't know, like buy for their home or whatever. Like what kind of dress you want to buy. They're super picky, but they're so not picky with people. And I often ask myself the question of like, okay, like why is that? Why is it that we are taught from an early age that I feel like the difference is this, like acceptance of someone doesn't mean an invitation into your energy. And I think this is where most people get this wrong, right? It's good to be accepting of everyone. It's great to be armed with the ability to accept, right? Because acceptance is key to higher spiritual meanings and a spiritual existence. Um, but then it's one thing to accept and then another thing to tolerate and a completely different thing to invite, right? And once you sort of like make that difference, once you really think about this concept, you can't really see the world and the people in it the same way anymore, because you start to see them as assets. You're like, okay, like this is an appreciating asset or a depreciating asset, right? Like when I look at someone, like, okay, like what does this person bring into my energy, into my vicinity? Like, are they kind? Are they gentle? Are they soft spoken? Are they like an intellectual? Are they interesting? Are they, sort of like, do they create some sort of curiosity within me? Or are they negative and toxic and like way too melancholic? Or are they in some sort of way like, we're not even talking about people who are just generally negative here. We're talking about people who use like just disgusting language, right? Like swearing and cussing and blah blah blah, like calling people like retards and da da da. We're talking about people who have no self control when it comes to like, ugh, right? And just I want you to like imagine their brains and like how full of these words and thoughts and like these terrible imagery that these words summon up is their head is full of. It's like when you're full of shit, right? That's what their minds feel like. Because if you looked at their mindscape, if we had a device that you could connect to someone's brain and create imagery that corresponds with the words and the vocabulary they use, you would see some really nasty, disgusting stuff, right? You're not gonna sit. Okay, I'm gonna say this as an example, but you're not gonna sit at your computer screen and watch someone take a dump, right? You're just not gonna you're gonna be like, wow, that's fascinating. Look at Eugene taking a big dump right now. Close up, zoom in the camera, right? Like, you wouldn't do that. You'd be like, ugh, gross, disgusting. But when someone is doing that with their words, you seem to be totally fine with it, right? A lot of people seem to be totally fine with it. Mm, and it's such a big giveaway. I really want you guys to think that this way, because when we release the art of quiet living, and I said we started a movement. This is what the movement is, right? Like, um, I want you to think about this from a different sense, from a like a pragmatic sense, not in a mystical sense, but from like a practicality type of standpoint. The movement is it's not to make your bed, it's not to clean your room, da da da. All of these are like very specific niche things. It's like quiet, make quiet the things that are beneath the person you want to be becoming. And that's a very hard thing to do because we're so addicted to drama. We're almost like programmed to want to consume it. And it gives you a strange feeling of closure, like let's say when you are sort of like emotionally or in a curiosity sense invested in some sort of drama, you want to see how it plays out. But you have to teach yourself the patience, right? And the skill of not having to actually watch everything play out. You can just leave the room without seeing what happens. You can. I know you can because I've done it, right? So if I can do it, you can do it. And it's such a liberating feeling. You guys, it's such a great feeling to be to like imagine you're walking through a corridor of doors, right? And you open the door and you see something that's just like yucky, right? I don't have to see this. Close the door, throw away the key, you know, go and check the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. So the reason I tell you this is when you become like strangely fascinated by something you see that's either dramatic or just like what let's call it like mental poop, right? Because that's what it is. It feels like mental poop, like filler content. When you look at that, you almost like have this obligation to yourself where you feel like, okay, like I have to see how this pans out, right? And it's a sick, twisted way for your brain to be programmed. And if you can like silence that voice and you can be like, you know what? It's not that I'm keeping this on like it's not like a imagine like a loading button or whatever. Like it's like loading 30%, 40%. It's not that I'm sort of like canceling this out midway and I will forever go on in my life wondering what happened. Did Eugene take a dump or not? You know what I mean? You might think it's funny. You might think I'm making fun of you, but I'm not. I'm actually very serious. Um, so you're like, it's like, man, like I probably he did like a 99% chance. Yeah, Eugene probably took a dump in that fucking disgusting video you watched, right? But what I'm trying to teach you is like you need to teach yourself how to not care. Why is this even important? It's not important, right? It's your brain tricking you that it is because like you want some sort of like closure. But the best closure you can give yourself, like mentally at least, the best closure you can give yourself is like I stopped caring the moment it made me feel bad. Oh my lord, if you can do that, you're above like 99% of all spiritual thinkers who have ever existed. I'm not kidding. If you can summon within yourself the courage to say, I stopped caring the moment it made me feel bad or fearful or negative or toxic and move on from the thing and just delete it from your life, like what we call it, like quieting it, like just quieten it from your life. You're doing a master's work because most people, including most people like even myself, for the most part are unable to do this. So yeah, I talked about this for a long time. It's like we're going in circles right now, but I want to give more examples, right? And the reason I want to give more examples is because this is really important. We'll learn this when we do a deep dive on everything. When you keep the company of good friends, when you keep like a clean hygienic company of good friends, like truly good people, it changes you guys. It changes your success level in life. It changes the quality of your person. It changes everything. It changes like how you decorate your house. It changes like how you take care of other people. It changes everything. So you can't keep having these like leeches and parasites, right? Sort of like clinging on to your lesser masterful traits when it comes to like your natural curiosity and so on and so forth. You can't have them, and you have to reject them all, and you have to take pride and perhaps even some sort of dopamine hit from rejecting them, especially from the get-go, right? When you start doing it, you're like, wow, that feels so good, like finally removing these leeches, these parasites, these energetic parasites. um it's such a good feeling. And you don't have to seek any closure. You don't have to think about them. You don't have to see like, oh, like I wonder how this ended or how it happened. And I wonder where they are now. Teach yourself to not care. Even if like you get intrusive thoughts and like the thought just like rises up, right? Every time the thought rises up, reject it. Because that's what you tell your subconscious, and that's what you tell the larger universe, right? The collective mind as well. That you know what, like I don't care. I didn't care then, and now this thought emerged, right? And it can sometimes, right? Because everything is imprinted into our subconscious mind. This thought emerges like, huh, I wonder like how this terrible person is doing who was like very mean to me like 10 years ago. So even before you start pondering and considering that and creating theories in your head, you can just say, you know what? I didn't care then, and I don't care now. Goodbye. Next. So don't just submit to whatever thought arises in your mind, right? Because this is what we're used to. We're slaves to our own psyches, most of us. You don't want to submit to the very, like, like sometimes when you're sad or you're not having a good day or you're anxious or you're angry or something like that, like a thought will arise. And the thought, like, actually, like, when you think about it, makes you feel bad. Like, it just makes you feel worse. And most of us submit to that thought because we believe it's part of our identity and who we are, right? You hold this thing, well, if it arose from my psyche, then I must be its source. And partially and technically, you're right, but you're not right, and you're not doing justice to your conscious mind. So even though it is something that arises from within you, you also have to admire and respect your conscious willpower and your ability to actually discard it. So I always tell people who are like highly emotional and they have like issues with emotional control and anger issues and stuff like that. I'm like, before the emotion even happens, like before the emotion, like it's okay to like look at the emotion. It's okay to understand what it is. It's okay to sort of like sit in it for a little bit to make sure you're really really correct in how you feel about it. But before the emotion starts to do its work, right? You have the power to reject it. That you have the sword with which you can cut through it and just say no. You know, like how many people are just so terrible at telling themselves no, like their own mind, when the mind wanders and it sort of like gives them this thought, they just say no to it. You can choose to say no to it. And the more you say no to that nagging thought, the less it's going to happen. And then eventually it's going to completely disappear. And that's how you know you've reprogrammed your mind. That's how you've done your shadow work, right? Once you start thinking about the world in this manner, where everything you do is of ultimate importance, how you think about things, how you do things, who you keep around you, it's an invitation for more of that energy, right? So what you have will multiply. What you're currently tolerating will multiply. Like the fact that it exists around you is the proof of that, right? And whatever like persists around you, it is going to increase over time. So because it's whatever you're allowing to persist around you, right? Mm. If you can master this line of thinking, if you can sort of like follow me on this, right? You're gonna be one step up in your spiritual journey, and you're going to gain this sort of like newfound understanding that you actually have much more control and agency over the things in your life than you think you do. And whatever is sort of like hidden behind the illusion or the veil or some sort of like fakery of or mimicry of tolerance and acceptance and just like being non-judgmental is actually doing you a lot of harm, right? You have to be judgmental. You have to be moralistic. You have to have high standards. You have to. You have to demand the best of the world from the world. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's what I do or try to do, right? Even if there's temptation sometimes to engage with things that I know are beneath me, which I do. I make that mistake sometimes, especially when it comes to people, because, I have a soft spot for humans in general, right? Mm, But I don't have to do it. And would I be smarter and better off if I did not do it? Yes, absolutely. Guarantee you. It's guaranteed 110%. Just reject it. And remember, the first giveaway is always the language. It's always the language someone uses, the way they talk, the words they use, the intonations that they cast, right? Like whether they have cadence or not, whether they have class or not, whether they have taste or not. All of these things matter a lot, right? Like just have higher standards. If someone cannot speak, they shouldn't be talking to you. They should be in school. Like literally, like if someone is, let's say, talking to you or debating you or arguing with you, and they they cannot properly communicate their thoughts, right? The first thought you should get is like, what are you doing arguing with me, my friend? You should be back to college or high school. You're not ready for a debate or an argument, right? You have to go back into education. Same thing, if someone can't be civil, and I absolutely demand them to be civil, to have a long term sort of like communication with them, right? Like an extended period of time. Because I'm not going to sit for 3 hours with someone who can't communicate without, personally offending the other person, right? So I'm not going to sit with them if they do that. So I tell them straight away, like, okay, you have like a maybe like a maximum of 10 minutes with me. And, if this behavior doesn't change, then, you know, this conversation's over, right? And you can choose it to be over, even if they're unhappy about it. Same thing with people who are overly negative or like just excessively naggy or I don't know, condescending and da 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 da. You don't have to tolerate any of that stuff, right? People who swear too much, people who talk like with broken words and broken English. You're like, what are you doing? Argue with me? Arguing, right? Um, and that scale that up, and put it into your everyday, and don't just do it with language and people, but do it with everything else in your life, right? Like just up the standards for what you demand from the world for yourself. You should want the best for yourself. You should want the best people, the nicest people, the greatest communicators, the greatest diplomats, the greatest sort of like companions, right? And not the ones that the world throws at you. Because if you tolerate, and this is a trauma response to a certain degree, I know, if you tolerate and if you sort of like settle on the very first thing the world throws at you, it's going to assume that you're going to do that each and every time. So it's just going to be giving you less and less. So the first flower you see, if you pick that flower all the time, it'll just keep giving you, right? Either the same or just less of the same. But if you say like I went out today to seek a beautiful flower, right? That speaks to my soul. And I want to look for a beautiful flower, right? That path, that line of thinking will lead you to a beautiful garden. But if you keep stopping at the first flower you see, right, you're never going to get to the beautiful garden. This is the same with people and things and careers and so on and so forth, right? Now, I'm not saying have excruciatingly high standards, like excessive high standards where they can never be achieved because they won't be. Remember what I taught you just now, right? That you don't get the highest form of your ideal. You get the the minimum viable product, right? You get the base minimum of what you're willing to take, what you're willing to tolerate from people, from career, from success, da, 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 so on and so forth. Like the sentiment or the notion of success must exist within your mind. It must exist within your psyche, but it exists within a sort of a range or spectrum. And whatever is the lowest of that spectrum. So let's say if you're looking for a successful job, right? The first job you'll accept is probably something that holds the base minimum requirements that you have, right? But if your base minimum requirements are relatively high, you're not going to accept the actually objectively crappy job. Get it? Because it's like the first thing that's offered to you, or it's something that's offered to you the most frequently. So if you're going to a beautiful place, you can't keep settling for things that are just like half of it or a quarter of it, right? If I'm going to a beautiful garden by my own standards, then I have to go to that specific type of beautiful garden, right? To see it, to actually revel in it, to enjoy the nature, to get the energy out of it. But um, the moment you're met with some sort of like, relatively okay space, they're like, okay, this will do, right? No, it won't. It will not do. It will not do. Because what you're teaching yourself is to expect bliss and high quality, but to always settle with the mediocre option. Like the way that's reprogramming your mind is like a very difficult way to live because it makes your brain and your sort of like higher mind and subconscious minds feel like you're never truly achieving, you're never truly getting the things you actually want. You're just getting this like lesser deformed versions of it, and it doesn't feel good, right? Like if your mind feels like you're not getting what you want almost ever, right? Because you stop pursuing it, well, it's going to create this idea or a philosophy that it's going to push onto your conscious mind now about the world, that the world is largely a disappointing place. It'll give you this sort of like sense of like, you know what, like, yeah, I guess the world is a relatively underwhelming place. If that's what happens all the time, if the cycle is like we want something and in our mind when we envision it, it's a beautiful thing. Like let's say I want to get an apartment, and in my mind I envision it to be a certain way. It's a beautiful space. But then I sort of like start going around and asking around, and I explore a few and whatever. Let's say we looked at 10 apartments, and they're just like almost good enough, but not quite. I'm not really having that sort of like, you know, vibing moment with them, and I still settle on one of them. I've just taught my mind that I'm never supposed to get what I really want. Again, I repeat the same examples. Again, we're walking in circles, but this is by design. I want to talk this way because I want you guys to get all these examples sort of like dialed in so you understand the concept. Because once you understand the concept, you don't need me anymore, right? It's just sort of like ingrained in your systemic thinking, right? Um, and I love this, like when I realized these sort of like truths and just how much agency a person can have, I really fell in love with this idea, and for good reason because it truly helped me. Like it really helped me develop clarity and energetic hygiene, what I call, right? Um, knowing that you have the weapon of silence, knowing that you have the ability, like the function to like, okay, ignore, block, get away, throw it out of the window, throw it in the trash bin, never, think about it again. That's so powerful.